The following are true scary stories, found on the subreddit Let's Not Meet. I'll have a link in the description for each of the stories if you'd like to read along. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you can catch all of my future content. Today is also the day I am starting my new channel, so make sure at the end of the video you click the annotation and head over there. The link will also be in the description for all of you mobile users. And without any further ado, let's begin. I used to work at a photocopy and shipping place. I primarily set business cards and brochures for customers, helping them print resumes and so on. My boss was a genuinely nice man. The job was pretty stressful, but he let us know how much he appreciated our hard work. If he had a flaw as a manager, it was that he tried too hard to please every customer. This is how I ended up meeting John. John appeared in the store with my boss at his side. My boss explained that Josh would need some help with his book. I was supposed to sit, with myself at the keyboard and John beside me, and make corrections to his manuscript as he rambled them off. Now, this is a huge no-no in any publishing setting. If the client sits with you and directs your work, you'll be on the job for ages as the client uses you to make tweak after tweak. The boss had strict rules against this for that reason. We didn't have time to hold every client's hand like this, not at the rates we charged. We're just a photocopying place, not some high-end graphics house. However, my boss was a nice guy, and if he wanted to break his own rules, fine with me. I agreed to help this John person. Now John's book was called the Book of Wisdom. It was a gigantic Word document with no chapter breaks. Each entry consisted of one line of this fellow's brand of enlightenment, followed by 3 blank lines of underscores. I'm guessing that the reader was supposed to read the wisdom and then write out beneath it what they thought it meant. Now, if you've ever worked on a long, old-school Word document, you'll know that if you make one mistake at the top, it can completely ruin the formatting below it. And if you open a file like this on your computer and it has been written in a different font that you don't have installed on your current computer, you would get a whole mess of misaligned text. This file was a nightmare. Most of my tinkering was just to get it all sorted out so that it would print correctly. John hovering over my shoulder the entire time. Much of these lines of wisdom were pretty obvious or borrowed from other sources. Samples included: there is always tomorrow, but tomorrow is never certain. You can have daydreams and night dreams, but you can't have them together. And some were unintentionally funny, like this one. Sometimes you come to a fork in the road, and sometimes it's a spoon. I didn't keep a copy of this manuscript, so those are the only ones that I can remember. It was absolutely massive, about 500 pages of this, and he insisted on having it printed out on one side of the paper and Surlocks bound. The job took ages, but we got it done, and John paid and left. That wasn't the last we'd seen of him, though. Every month or so, John would show up again, disc in hand, with a bunch of changes he needed made or new wisdom he wanted added. Since the boss had let him sit by me once before, he was sort of cornered into letting John continue this practice. Over the next few months, John's appearance started to degrade. When he first came in, he was clean-cut and presentable. As time went on, he stopped shaving regularly, his clothing got shabbier, and his wisdom weirder. He loved to corner me and tell me how any day now a publisher or other was going to pick up his book of wisdom and he would be famous. It all came to a head one day when one of my co-workers came running in, looking panicked. She'd been at the bus station and saw John, in a kilt, with no shirt on, threatening people with a huge hunting knife. He was ranting that my boss had stolen some Native American art from him and that he was going to get even. He apparently attempted to assault someone and there were police looking for him. Right behind her, I could see John entering the parking lot. I didn't see a knife, but he had a grubby gym bag over his shoulder. He had a wild look in his eyes that I've never seen before or since on a human being. My coworkers weren't sure what to do. We had no time to lock the doors. I hissed at them to get in the office and call 911. They scurried off just as John entered the shop. I had the foresight to remove the box cutter from the pencil cup on the counter. Not that I intended to use it, but I didn't want John to grab it and start swinging. John stormed in and demanded to see the boss. I, honestly enough, said that he wasn't here and started to try to talk him down. John was raving that my boss owed him over $10,000 that he'd stolen in his Indian art, as John put it, and he wanted that money now. At that point, John looked at me with what I can only call an evil snarl and said, "You're not calling the cops on me, are you?" I replied, "Of course not, John. How can I? I'm standing right here." This seemed to appease him, and he grinned at that. We made sort of small talk, and I kept him occupied until the police pulled up and took him away. He went meekly with them. The police asked me a few questions and left. I was pretty shaken up by this event, as you can imagine. Some months later, I came into work, and there was John, sitting at the computer with my boss, working on his book of wisdom again. I couldn't believe it. After he was gone, I confronted my boss about it. He said that John had been off of his medication, and that he had promised to never let it happen again. Let's just say I found another job and left the position soon after. Later on, I heard my boss actually gave John a part-time job at the store. I avoided the place, and eventually, my boss closed the shop and moved on to other things. And I haven't seen John since. Okay, so I go to a kind of program for people recovering from mental illness, similar to group therapy. There is this woman who goes there who has a brother in prison. One day, she casually mentioned him to me, and she was saying that he was wanting someone to write to because he was lonely and asked me if I would. I told her I wasn't comfortable with the idea, and she dropped it. A few weeks later, she came to me with about 5 or 6 of his letters. I decided to look them over, but I waited until I got home. The letter said that she had been telling him all about me, and he wants to be with me when he gets out. He started saying that he was in love with me, and he wants to be my son's new daddy. It was so creepy. It got me so creeped out that I actually returned all of the letters to that lady. I believe I posted one of them somewhere online. They were saying I should come visit him in prison, and that I should send a picture of myself to him so he can show his woman off. I have never seen this man, and I have never met him. I brought them to her and told her that I was uncomfortable, and she said she would tell him that I was not interested. This was months ago. A couple of days ago, she brought me another letter from him. She told me that she had read it over, and this one wasn't creepy, so I felt better. But when I read it, he was still saying that he was desperately in love with me, and that he thinks of me every day, and that he is my son's father. And he actually asked me to be his girlfriend. I am really afraid of this guy, and I'm afraid that he's going to find out where my son and I live. I don't know what to do. When I was in high school, my friends and I would spend every Halloween night at our friend Emily's house. Her parents were cool with us hanging out and being teenagers all night. So often we would trick or treat and spend the night, get drunk, etc. Emily lives about 1,000 feet from our high school, and the neighborhood was arranged in a square pattern, a park, 4 streets bordering it, 4 more streets surrounding that. The layout means that there are a lot of side streets, alleyways, and there are a dozen ways to get to anyone's house. Our sophomore year, we did our usual thing. This year, I went as a pimp because all of my friends wanted to wear sexy outfits. It was a stupid theme, but immature us, we thought it was hilarious. We started drinking a bottle of shitty vodka and went trick-or-treating. For about an hour, it was fun. Saw a bunch of friends from school, got candy, talked about sneaking some guy friends over later on. It was shaping up to be a good night. But as we reached one corner of the neighborhood and turned down the next, this creepy man comes up to us. He was what you would imagine someone's dad would look like. Old, kinda slovenly, balding, and most importantly, not attending to a child. He approaches us, and I say something in character like,
"Which girl are you interested in?"
We giggle and laugh and continue to pass him, but he reaches out and grabs one of my friends. He gets a firm grip on her arm. He says something along the lines of, "She's really cute. How much?" At first, I was just fooling around, but him grabbing her made all of us very uncomfortable, so we say,
"Dude, we're messing around. We're only 15.
He lets go, and we bounce. My friend freaks out, so we decide not to play around anymore, and just get some candy. We head down another street, and keep a lookout for this guy. My friend's still grossed out, but we manage to keep our fun going. But this guy shows up again, scanning the crowd for us. Quickly, we lock eyes, and he backs off into the flow of the crowd. I tell my friends the creeper is still following us, and we skip a few houses to put some distance between us and the guy. We keep going, and we see him again, only this time, he's in front of us. Like I mentioned, the number of side streets and alleys means that you can take a detour off of the main streets and still end up in the same destination. And with 30 or 40 people passing through at a time, nobody really notices a single out-of-place man. We see him, and we stop dead. This guy is clearly following us, and we made it pretty clear that we were kids messing around. We decide to stomach it and keep going past him, pretending we don't notice the creepy man. As we go by, he says nothing. He just watches us as obviously as he possibly can before we turn down the street. Once he can't see us anymore, we take off all the way back to Emily's house, hoping that we're moving too fast for him to follow. We get back to her house, and we decompress and flip out for a few minutes, but we forget about it once we get the bonfire going, and the guys sneak over, and we start passing the drinks around. A few hours later, the streets are empty, and the only people still up are us, trying our best to be as silent as we can. That's when we hear a car moving very slowly down the street. Not like someone's heading home after a night out, but like they're trying to look out the window, and moving too fast would make them miss what they are looking for. We look out over the gate and see the car creeping along, but it's too dark inside to really make out who was driving. But we watched it hit the end of the street and keep going. It passed by another time that night, and it got us all wound up, so we called it a night. It was a family neighborhood, so no one would really be driving around 2 a.m. In our heads, the only person who would be doing something like that was the man that we saw earlier, looking for us. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you can catch all of my future content. If you want some more scary stories, make sure you head over to my new channel, Fear Your Maker, and see what I have up there. By the time that channel is in full swing, it will produce more content than this one. That will begin to slowly make its way to my primary account. It will have true scary stories, as well as creepypastas, paranormals, Bigfoot, aliens, and all the other topics that may not qualify for what I'm going for on this channel. Make sure you go over and subscribe so you can see exactly what's going to happen. I plan on doing a lot of fun things over there. A little hint would be Twisted Tuesdays, which you might want to look out for tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe, and just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.